So Johnny from Orocco.
Dugald from DS Architecture.
So how long are we working together for Dugald now?
It must be about 6 years, 7 years now. A few projects.
Probably, yeah. No, it's been good. So just sort of do a wee video today, actually, how we found working together, what's been the pros and cons.
Sure.
Why you like picking a contractor, and I'll take about why I like working alongside an architect. Try not to slag each other too much, but
Sounds good.
yeah. So if we look back over the projects over the last maybe 5 years, what have you found has been kind of beneficial? Like working with Orocco or another kind of contractor?
Yeah, I think it's consistency, 100%. Consistency of communication has been really good, and management. We've worked on different types of projects, developer-led, private clients, all that kind of stuff. So having that consistency throughout all those different types of projects has been really good.
Yeah, I can agree that is massive. And do you find if you're working like a smaller contractor or a man in a van, that consistency is not there, or your communication is not there, and it's harder for you, it's harder for the client, kind of thing?
It is. You find yourself chasing, and if with a principal contractor like yourselves, where you've got a hierarchy and a management system, you know who to speak to for any given problem, what challenge, whatever it may be. It's much easier. You know who to go to, who's going to manage that problem. Manage that problem.
So I've kind of always found that's on my sort of side, when we work with somebody that we don't know and they put us with a contract like a man in a van, we can't compete with that. But then you drive past a project a year and a half later and it's still not done, and it's a frustration of mine kind of thing. So that's why I quite like obviously working with, you know, an architect like yourself and different practices that have got a good reputation. You know, you're kind of, it's a level sort of playing field. I just find it's a bit more, you know, beneficial for both parties as well.
Well, definitely, and I tell clients that the same. If you go with a main contractor like yourselves, yes, you might pay a slight premium for that service and that level of service, but ultimately you'll get a much more successful project.
So when you've met the client, you've got their brief, then you'll try and go for planning. Guessing planning happens and it'll be going through warrant basically, yeah, is that right?
That's right.
And then once you've got your warrant, then you then looking over to hand it to a contractor for either negotiation or a tender kind of route.
Yeah, that's it. So in most cases, I've already gone down the design route quite far through the process already before we even think about engaging a contractor. I always think it's quite good to engage a contractor as soon as possible. It really depends on what the client wants, whether they are open just to going with a single contractor or whether they'd rather go through a kind of a more competitive process. Yeah. But the sooner you can engage with someone, the better. And normally, typically after you've got your warrant design in place, even before the warrant's even granted, you know, you've got a very good idea of what you've got. Yeah. You can go to a contractor and start to kind of engage with early cost conversations and that sort of thing. Yeah.
And do you think that kind of helps with the negotiation side, or do you think clients still, in your experience, would still rather go to the tender, or is it a bit of a mixed bag?
Clients want security, and they want an understanding. Most of the time, this is the first time they'll ever have done this kind of thing. So to go to a single contractor and be told this is how much it's going to cost, they've got nothing to compare that against. Yeah. So that's where early engagement really helps. Establishing relationships, establishing trust, so that if they are going to go down that negotiated route, there's a full understanding of where these costs have come from and why they are the way they are. Yeah. Otherwise, yes, they'll probably be more tempted to go down a competitive process.
I kind of feel for myself, like for a contractor point of view, negotiation's a bit more an open book. So you've drawn it this way, but we could build it this way for, you know, this kind of a wee tweak here might help. Where I sort of feel when you go to the tender and everyone's trying to keep it close into their chest, and there might be more caveats, and I'd imagine for you, then you're working through, like, have they included for this, have they included for that, and you've got a bit more, might be a bit more admin, you'd kind of say, but I do kind of completely agree with the client's point of view. They want to know they're getting the best value for money, and they've went to the market to see, you know, we went to 3 contractors on a level playing field, and it's, you know, such and such as 20% dearer, but why is that? Or, you know, from my point of view, I'd probably be saying to the subcontractors and stuff as well, going, look, we're needing this one, so everyone here, you're going to need to go in keener, but then I'm going to then put out to tender with different subcontractors, which again, I prefer working with the team that you've got, so you know where the subcontractors at, and there's so many times in the past, you get a cheaper subcontractor price, you think, right, great, but then it's like back to the man in the van store, they're no picking up the phone, they're not turning up when they're meant to, they're affecting the programme and all the trades behind them, and it just ends up affecting the programme and the job. So I do like to try and make sure we've got like approved kind of subcontractors as well. I think it's so important to how the job works.
No, I think that's true. I think with with a competitive tender as well, as you say, people keep the cards closer to their chest for longer until you know you're the preferred contractor.
Yeah.
In which case, you're much closer to the build time, and so you're then, even when you've started work, you're still trying to build that relationship with the client. The earlier engagement and going through a negotiated process, you've got that time to establish that relationship. So when things come to site, things run generally a lot smoother because you've already got that much more established relationship between myself, yourself, and the client.
I think that's quite a good point as well, because you're right. You're hitting the ground. You're hitting the job with the ground running. You're ready to go. You've done a lot of the back and forth, and it's organised. It's in a nice place, and it should be a much smoother kind of process from there. So when we're on site, what's your kind of ideal scenario? Like, how many meetings do you like to do? Are they frequent, infrequent? How do you try and work it?
Typically, it's every couple of weeks. But you're obviously always in continual communication, whether it's emails, phone calls, addressing issues on site or whatever. But when it comes to kind of formal meetings with site managers and with the client, you're looking at every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I find that's normally enough to kind of keep things kind of ticking over. Nothing ever kind of gets extended. A problem never gets extended beyond where it has to, and that keeps things on track.
I think that's really important, isn't it? That's from a contractor point of view. I know the projects we've done in the past, you're always contract administrator. It's a very important thing for me that, like, I won't take on a project without a contract administrator. Yeah. So many times in the past, something's on the drawings that turns out you can't build it like that on site, or the drainage isn't as per the plans. And I always just feel it's good to work with an architect like yourself to go, like, you know what, we need to change this, or this is what needs to happen, and it's all recorded. And that's why I do quite like the meetings every fortnight too. So you've got a set of minutes, everyone knows where they stand, what's required for the next week, fortnight, whatever it may be. If there's any variations we need to try and catch along the way, it's, we're trying to do it there and then. Yep. I just feel the process, having the fortnightly meetings does certainly help. Help along.
It all comes down to communication, just clear lines of communication, and that kind of trifecta, that client, contractor, architect relationship, which is, especially for private projects where the client's generally a lot more involved. It's just so important to keep those three. The tie between those three really strong.
And you sort of feel, as it gets towards the end, does the client get a bit more of that, or is it sort of, because that's always a kind of point for me too, like, I kind of feel it's easier when the clients aren't living there, for example, and as soon as, if they need to move back in a fortnight before the project's finished, it's always a harder time, because then you've got somebody working over them or whatever it may be. So it's trying to manage that as well, that I kind of feel it can be quite difficult.
No, definitely. I mean, every client's different, of course, and some are more hands-on than others. But generally speaking, they all go through the same kind of roller coaster of emotions throughout the course of a project. From the early excitement of designing something, through to the reality of getting things costed, to the horror of getting things built. Sometimes, when everything's getting knocked down, dust everywhere, all the rest of it. So it's a roller coaster for them, and again, just communication and managing them through the process is just so important.
Yeah, exactly. So we're on site, and something you've drawn, a contractor then goes to you, you know what, Dugald, have you thought about doing it this way? Yeah. Because I think it'll work better for the project. How do you then kind of feel about that? Are you kind of one of those architects, nope, my drawings are, that's it, it's final?
My way or the highway, yeah. No, I mean, I'm very flexible, to be honest with you. I think there are times where you have to defer to expertise of others. And I think when somebody's working on this kind of thing all the time, contractors know the ins and outs and the practicalities of how something's made or built, then you've got to defer to that expertise, because sometimes we as architects, we'd love to think that we know it all, but we don't. And while design intent is clear, as long as if we can do it and achieve the same look, same aesthetic, and same function, but by doing it a slightly different way, then of course.
Yeah. I think that's so important, like having collaboration, isn't it? So
exactly.
It's good you can pick up the phone and go, you know what, we thought about this way, or you thought this way, or likewise, sometimes you might walk onto site and go, guys, do you know what, my drawing says that we've done it this way because 3 steps down the line, this isn't going to tie in, or that we want the heights to work in better. So it's just having that kind of, as you say, communication, open collaboration sort of book that we can work together with, kind of thing.
No,
I
absolutely.
think that works really well.
No, absolutely. And most of the projects, and certainly the ones we've worked on, are all dealing with existing buildings.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever what you think it's going to be, especially once you strip everything back. There's always going to be changes, there's always going to be factors within the project that are going to change design or the way you build something. So that always has some.
Yeah, we're talking about that earlier. One day we'll get a new building, it'll be nice and square and plumb.
Much easier to quantify, much easier to cost, that's for sure. I think one of the biggest differences with Orocco, since first engaging with you, 7, 8 years ago maybe, you were the point man on pretty much all the different projects. And I think your own growth has meant that you've had to introduce those layers of management with, site managers, contract managers, up to yourself. And I think that's been really good to see, because you've been adapting to not only your own workload, but the way that projects should be managed on site as well, which has been great. And that rate of growth and that progression, if it keeps going the way it's going, then it's going to be amazing. You'll be doing phenomenal, large, the biggest projects in Edinburgh. But it's been great. It's been great to see, because seeing you over that prolonged period of time, you as a company, it's been great to kind of see that growth.
Yeah, I think us at Orocco, we've now got different businesses in the group. We've got our own electrical company, decorating company, glazing company. So I think we've found throughout the years, it's harder and harder to rely on subcontractors. So we're trying to build in our group. Yeah. So we've got subsidiaries that we can rely on. So it's helping our programs flow a lot better, basically. So we're not waiting for somebody to turn up, kind of thing. So it just makes it a bit easier for us. So from kind of your point of view, it must be slightly easier as well, because you're not going, your contractor's not going, the plumber's let me down, so I'm trying to get another plumber, kind of thing.
So. Absolutely. I mean, likewise for the client, for me, it's all about security. It's the security of knowing that you've got these established relationships and these established these companies that have been going for as long as they've been going, but even before you guys kind of became affiliated, that you've got these guys to go to and these guys you can rely on. And the security of knowing that helps towards program, it helps on costing, it helps on all sorts of things, and again, just provides that level of assurance and reliance, or reliability rather, for the client.
So how have you kind of found it with cost now? Like, I know, like through COVID, cost of materials were like a yo-yo, and they just kept rising. Sure. So we were finding through COVID, a lot of clients might go, you know what, I'm going to park my project for a year or two, so hopefully material stabilise start coming down. But maybe when materials were like that through COVID, they're more a plateau now. You still get the odd wee spike, or your raw materials are going, so there maybe be a wee increase, but it's certainly a lot more stable now. So I'm finding clients maybe, they're not as worried now, kind of thing, about the materials and the labour kind of aspect. But now we've obviously got the economy on a bit of a different kind of wavelength. So
no, I think in terms of the economy, that's always going to ebb and flow, and I think you're always going to go through different phases. I think with the cost of materials and labour and the result of COVID, and that, as you say, the dust has kind of settled a wee bit now. What I'm finding is that clients are probably a little bit more into the nuts and bolts of what things cost. It's not that they can't afford things, it's just they want to know what their money's going on. I think, again, the reliance on a quality contractor and the quality costing process is really, really helpful with that, because they can see where their money's being spent, because they're much more conscious about how their money's being spent.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because now you probably realise more like how much money you actually spend under the ground on a project. Compared to what you see. But it's an interesting. My bit of advice would be, for somebody looking to start a project, is coming to somebody like yourself with a good reputation, cracking designs. You can see the work that you've done and the quality that you've achieved, and kind of thinking out the box. For me as a contractor, we don't like just building a square box. We like your bespoke design, something you've got the wow factor that looks really nice. That would kind of be my take on that.
And that's reciprocated. I want a contractor that can realise those designs and realise those different solutions. Every project's different, and every client wants something a little bit different. And the way I tend to work is that a design is tailored to what they need, albeit based on fundamental principles that I kind of buy into as a designer. But I want a contractor that can see those through and see the vision and execute it, and obviously work through the process and work through the construction process to get the final result.
Great, that's brilliant, Dugald. Thank you very much.
Thank you.